This will be a video about the Kennedy family, which I've been hesitant to make because I know that I cannot cover it thoroughly, but I did want to point out the similarities between this family and some of the other witchcraft families who came from Europe to the U.S. The Kennedy family has long been prominent in politics, public service, entertainment, and business. And politics is rhetoric, and rhetoric is one of the 7 sacred sciences taught by the fallen. This is the Kennedy family coat of arms, and those are knights' helms, like helmets. The Kennedy family originated from an Irish clan called O'Cinnedy, spelled Cinneide, who ruled the former kingdom of Ormond in Ireland. In 1546, their progenitor, Diarmaid, became the owner of Nye Castle, and that is a knight castle. It was common for the knights of royals to get land and rule over the serfs in the Middle Ages. 30 castles in Ireland were built by the Kennedy family. Here are some of them: Dromineer Castle, Lackeen Castle, Nenagh Castle. Fritz Springmeier wrote in his book Bloodlines of the Illuminati that the Kennedys were one of the 13 Illuminati families in the U.S. So the Kennedys follow our pattern of witches who came from the UK to New England, specifically Massachusetts. Patrick Kennedy sailed from Ireland to Boston in 1849, and he was born at Nye Castle. His son, P.J. Kennedy, was Massachusetts state legislature. They were from Brookline, Massachusetts, which was designed by the Druid architect Olmsted, who also designed many other parks and neighborhoods, including Central Park and the Druid Hills neighborhood in Atlanta, which he stated was a design that he wanted to do after the rolling hills of the Druids back home. At least one Kennedy family member has served in federal active office every year from 1947, when P.J. Kennedy's grandson, JFK, became a member of Congress from Massachusetts, until 2011, when Patrick Kennedy II, JFK's nephew, retired as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Rhode Island. PJ's son, Joseph Kennedy Sr., was U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and U.S. Ambassador to the U.K. during World War II. He had 9 children, including JFK. So JFK graduated from Harvard in 1940 and later became a commissioned naval officer. It says without having gone through the proper channels. I'm not exactly sure what those channels are, but since the U.S. Navy is the Royal Navy, he likely went through their channels. So that's another connection to the witches, the Navy. During World War II, he commanded PT boats in the Pacific Theater. JFK served in both houses before becoming president. I always wondered why everyone said that he was so handsome, because I never thought that. He had Sampaku eyes. He looks disturbed. Jackie was also advertised as beautiful and glamorous. I do not see that, but that is how propaganda works. If you repeat something enough, then everyone starts regurgitating it. But they definitely dressed her up. Oleg Cassini was made infamous as her fashion designer. He also designed fashion for Hollywood. Oleg Cassini is the Russian aristocrat who lived in the Witchtown House I covered in my video titled Witchtown House. And Oleg Cassini wrote a book titled 1000 Days of Magic about the days that he was her fashion designer. Something that Jackie wrote on their honeymoon about JFK. He would find love, he would never find peace, for he must go seeking the golden fleece. The golden fleece is from Greek mythology and a symbol of authority and kingship. It's the fleece of the golden-wooled winged ram that was sacrificed to Zeus for power, and the fleece was kept in a sacred grove. A few other Kennedys I'll go over. Robert F. Kennedy served as U.S. Attorney General and a senator. Ted Kennedy served more than 46 years in the Senate. Gene Kennedy Smith served as U.S. Ambassador to Ireland. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. currently serves as U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services in the cabinet of Donald Trump. But they're puppets, knights of the European royals and the devil, and they pay for it. We're going to look at the Kennedy curse, but just think about how blessed we are that we're covered by the blood of Jesus and protected from the demons that plague those who interact with them. 1941, Joseph Kennedy, JFK's father, arranged a lobotomy for his oldest daughter, Rosemary, when she was 23 years old. I'll cover that in more detail later. 1944, Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. died when the military aircraft he was piloting exploded over East Suffolk in England. In 1944, Lord Harrington, also known as Edward William Spencer Cavendish, son of the Duke of Devonshire, so he was in line for the Duke of Devonshire. And that Duke of Devonshire, his father, was Order of the Garter, most excellent order of the British Empire, and one of the largest private landowners in Great Britain and Ireland. And his son, Edward William Spencer Cavendish, was husband of Kathleen Kennedy. He was educated at Oxford, and he was killed 4 months after they were married, supposedly shot by a German sniper, probably someone Kit Harington is related to. Devonshire is where the other witches we've been covering came to Massachusetts from England. H.P. Lovecraft, Moses Maverick, etc. 1948, Kathleen Kennedy died in a plane crash, flying to the south of France on vacation with her new partner, 8th Earl Fitzwilliam. In 1956, Arbella Kennedy, daughter of John F. Kennedy, died at birth. In 1963, another one of their infants died, Patrick. It says he died of respiratory distress syndrome 2 days after his birth. So those infants are buried in a memorial at Arlington National alongside JFK and Jackie. So JFK's burial and the infant's burial were at night, which is very unusual. There's a torch there that never goes out called the Never-Ending Flame or something like that. I think it's strange that the death of the babies bookended JFK's presidency. I visited that memorial a long time ago, and it's definitely off. I knew that even before I was awake. So JFK was assassinated on November 22nd of 1963, and that was less than a week after this photo was taken with him and Wernher von Braun. It says explaining the Saturn system to him. In 1964, Ted Kennedy's plane crashed in Massachusetts. In 1968, U.S. Senator and Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy was shot in the Ambassador Hotel in L.A. on the night of his victory in the California primary. In 1969, Ted Kennedy drove off a bridge in Chappaquiddick Island, Massachusetts, resulting in the drowning death of his 28-year-old passenger. In 1973, Joseph P. Kennedy crashed a Jeep and left his passenger paralyzed. 1973, Edward Kennedy Jr. at age 12 had his right leg surgically amputated because of bone cancer, supposedly. 1974, Athalia Ponsell Lindsley, who dated Joseph P. Kennedy, was murdered at her home. In 1984, David Kennedy, son of Robert F. Kennedy, died of drug overdose in Palm Beach in a hotel. In 1997, Michael Lemoyne Kennedy, son of Robert F. Kennedy, died in a skiing accident after crashing into a tree in Aspen, Colorado. In 1999, John F. Kennedy Jr. died in a plane crash off the coast of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. In 2006, Patrick Kennedy crashed driving into a barricade on Capitol Hill because of an addiction to Ambien and Phenergan. In 2011, Kara Kennedy, daughter of Ted Kennedy, died of a heart attack exercising in Washington, D.C. 2012, Mary Richardson Kennedy, wife of Robert F. Kennedy, died by suicide. 2019, Seriose Kennedy Hill, granddaughter of Robert F. Kennedy, died of a drug overdose at the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport, Massachusetts. In 2020, Maeve Kennedy McKean, granddaughter of Robert F. Kennedy, drowned with her 8-year-old son in the Chesapeake Bay. Now I'm going to read some information from Springmeier's Bloodlines of the Illuminati. The Kennedys are connected to the British monarchy. One of Joseph Kennedy's daughters, Kathleen, was married to the son of the Duke of Devonshire. We already talked about that. He was a pillar of the Church of England, the Anglican Druid Church that we've been talking about, and a high-ranking Freemason. So have we not been talking about all those witches that came over to New England from Devonshire? Joseph Kennedy was often heard saying, "If Kathleen and her husband were living, I'd be the father of the Duchess of Devonshire," who was the first lady in waiting to the Queen, and the father-in-law of the head of all the Masons in the world. The British royal family, at the request of Joseph Kennedy, put on their full royal regalia for the Kennedy family visit. Joseph Kennedy was in the British branch of the Knights of Malta, the Order of St. John. Jackie, her sister, was married to Prince Stanislaus Radziwill, and the Radziwill family established the Order of St. John of Jerusalem in Poland, and they helped establish it in the U.S. as well. The Knights of Malta have an ancient history of running drugs and administering mind-altering drugs in their hospitals. This ancient activity was carried forth into modern times when their St. Christopher's Hospital in London began giving patients a Brompton mixture until they died, and that consists of heroin, cocaine, alcohol, tranquilizers, and chloroform water. This mixture is given in the Knights of Malta hospitals to patients every 3 hours until they die. The Kennedys were also involved in the drug trade and organized crime. Joseph Kennedy's partners included Joseph Lindsay, who was a kingpin of organized crime in New England, the Bronfmans in Canada, those are the ones that had the cult, Winston Churchill, the Druid. Various gangsters reported that during the Prohibition they smuggled illegal liquor into the U.S. with the help of Joseph Kennedy, so he was a bootlegger. Elite people such as the Rothschilds, Winston Churchill, and the royal family were also reported to use drugs heavily, including Queen Victoria. But what about the assassination? The assassination of JFK, per Fritz Springmeier, is one of the best ways that they used to introduce the Americans to the New World Order conspiracy. So now I'm going to talk about Rosemary Kennedy, the sister of JFK, the eldest daughter. It's reported that she had mental health issues and erratic behaviors. Some speculated this was due to SRA abuse, and that was also speculated about JFK. It's reported that JFK was very skilled at picking up women and getting them to bed, but didn't have the ability to love or relate to others, which is another clue that he may have had some type of SRA abuse. So when Rosemary returned to the U.S. from the UK in 1940, she reportedly became worse, having convulsions and violent rages, and injuring herself and others. Her father was worried that her behavior would damage their political careers. So he arranged a lobotomy on her in 1941 when she was 23 years old. And that procedure left her permanently incapacitated, unable to speak intelligently, and incontinent. So she was institutionalized and kept secret for decades. Her mother did not visit her for 20 years, and her father did not visit her at all. She was buried alongside her parents at Holy Hood Cemetery in Brookline, Massachusetts. The term Camelot is often used to describe JFK's presidency. It says, reflecting both the mythic grandeur accorded Kennedy in death and the powerful nostalgia for that era of American history. It says, the most popular theme surrounding Kennedy's legacy is its replay of the legend of King Arthur and Camelot from Arthurian literature. In an interview following Kennedy's death, Jackie mentioned his affection for the Broadway musical Camelot and quoted its closing lines. Don't let it be forgot that once there was a spot for one brief, shining moment that was known as Camelot. Thanks for listening.